welcome to another episode of our podcast. My name is Andrew Lee. I'm one of your co-hosts for the podcast, as well as
Tawfiq.
and we're super excited to be joined by one of the best pre-construction lawyers who's specializing in pre-construction for quite a while now, right?
Yeah, it's been about 20 years.
Mr. David Feld.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you very
We're
much.
super excited.
Me too.
We do a lot of pre-construction, so we thought there's no better way than to bring the best pre-construction lawyer, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Started off, first question would be, what have you been seeing lately, recently in the market? What kind of buyers are buying pre-construction?
There's definitely been a large change in the last little while. We're seeing less buyers, first of all. It's harder to close a deal for a builder. And what we're seeing is investors, but that's kind of what we always saw. So it's more investors, not people moving in to live there as their primary place of residence. I think it's too soon. They can't make that decision for 3-4 years in advance of where they want to live right now. So we're seeing less people who want to live there as an end user, and more people who are investing. And then there is more scrutiny on the agreement these days. They don't just go ahead like they used to. I would say more than 9 out of 10 times, or 95% of the time in the past, people would always go ahead with new constructions within the 10-day cooling off period.
Yeah.
But nowadays, some people do cancel during the cooling off period.
For a pre-construction agreement, it's quite a bit longer than a resale agreement as well. But were people using lawyers, or would they just sign off?
It's a really good question. It is and always was advisable to use a lawyer during the 10-day cooling off period, because the lawyer has to review it and warn the buyer of any potential red flags. And these days, by the way, there are a lot of red flags, more than usual. Sometimes some builders are adding some clauses that can add 1 or 2 or 3% to the purchase price at final closing, and no one wouldn't pick up on it until the final closing. So are people using lawyers? I hope so. We can't know. That's the thing. People who don't use lawyers, we don't know, right? And so I always implore, and I do say this directly to builders if you're out there. Any builder that is out there that signs up a client, a purchaser, you really should have a duty to tell them to hire a lawyer within the 10-day cooling off period. You should tell them to do that. You shouldn't just sneak by and let them go without getting a lawyer, because at the end of the day, 2-3 years later after that, when they close, if there's a major cost that wasn't disclosed to them, it'll look horrible. Okay, but they don't have a duty to do that. Builders don't have a duty to tell them to use a lawyer. So many people may not even use a lawyer. They may not even know they should use a lawyer. How do I know that? Because some people come to us 2 years out and say, hey, I signed this agreement 2 years back. We do our standard review where we go through all the numbers, and they're shocked to see some major charges, things like development charges they don't even know about, things like Section 37 charges they don't know about, different things that no one warned them about. And why would they?
I think it's also on the realtor to tell their client to get a lawyer review, right?
For sure. Now, a good realtor will always get a lawyer involved right away. Sometimes people walk into these places without a realtor as well.
Oh, true. You're right.
Which means that the builders are just, they're just selling it. They're not really advising the clients or the buyers.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why there's a statutory cooling off period in the Condominium Act. So when you're buying a condominium, you get 10 days to cool off, to think about it. So it's built in so people can approach a lawyer.
That's the consumers, right?
Exactly.
So as you said, it's only for condos, right?
Exactly. It's under the Condominium Act. So when you talk about houses that have no condominium component, there's no 10-day cooling off period. So when someone signs one of those agreements, it's firm as you hand it back to the builder. There's no conditions.
So how can they review the agreement?
So there's 2 ways that they can do it. One, some builders, which are great, will work in a 10-day cooling off period or a 5-day cooling off period right in the agreement. Some agents will say, hey, my client loves this project. Can you add in a clause for 5-day cooling off period? And some will say yes. That's a good way. Other ways, some builders and many builders will say, here's the agreement blank.
Yeah.
Take it to your lawyer, make your requests. We'll say yes, no, whatever. And then we'll give you the agreement, and then you'll sign it and it will be firm. So they don't sign it for 10 days that way.
Yeah, I think that's usually been the case. They just provide the agreement up front so that we can review it beforehand.
Exactly. So when it's a house and there's no component under the Condominium Act, they'll often hand you the agreement, let you go do your thing with your lawyer, and then the deal becomes firm after that. That also means during that time, if someone else makes an offer on that same property, they could take it. But that is definitely not happening in the market right now. It's not a concern. It was in the past. It's definitely not a concern.
Yeah. Another big difference between freehold and condos is that the deposit gets deposited into a different account.
That's right. So when under the Condominium Act, always I always make sure of this for my clients. The money that you give as a deposit is not to the builder, but to the builder's lawyer in trust. In trust, you can trust that the money is in trust and safe in case something happens. When it comes to these other properties where they're not governed under the Condominium Act, sometimes it's made to the lawyer in trust. Other times it's made to the builder, the person who's going to build this property in a few years, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
And that's a little bit scary. So what do we do at our firm when we see that? We write to the builder's lawyer and the builder and we say, hey, we don't want to give you that money. We want to give it to your lawyer. We say that. And we want to give it to your lawyer in trust. Please provide your lawyer's trust account information so we can do that. And many times the builder is like, yeah, here you go. And then we feel much better. No one even knows about that.
Oh, wow.
That's one thing. Second thing is, sometimes they say, no, we want the money.
Yeah.
So then I say to the client in writing, and you should too if you can, or at least get a good lawyer to say it, there is a risk here that if the builder goes bankrupt or does not complete the project, that your money will not come back to you. And you can sue for that money. Like, we can ask for the money first, hopefully they'll pay it. In many cases, by the way, they do pay it. We've seen that. In other cases, they're gone. They spent the money and it didn't work and they're gone. How are you going to get it back? You have to sue them. And it's hard to sue. It's hard to, you could win, you will win, but then you have to collect. It's hard to collect. You don't always, winning in court doesn't mean you get money, by the way. It just means you won. You have a judgment against someone. Then there's steps to take to collect on the judgment. And that's the hard part, especially if there's no money on the other end, which in these cases, often it's a corporation that you sent the money to, and that corporation didn't make it, so the corporation has now gone defunct. You can't get any money from the corporation. You try and sue the actual person behind it. It's hard to pierce the corporate veil. It's hard to sue them to get any money unless you can prove bad faith or terrible things that they've done, which is hard to prove because they'll say, I did everything with all honesty and I failed.
Yeah. I'm sure you guys review tons of agreements every month, right, for pre-construction.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In today's market, what are you guys finding the most reason people are canceling during the 10 days?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's like a fear of the unknown. I'll say one thing. If everything isn't capped by the builder, sometimes that creates a fear. Most builders cap most items. Capping means putting a limit to what it can be. Like, if development charges are capped at $5,000 plus HST, everything's plus HST. If they're capped at $5,000, it can't go higher than $5,000. So even if it costs the builder $7,000, they can only charge $5,000. That's what the cap means, and that's what people want, so that they can go into the purchase knowing that when I close 2-3 years from now, this is what I'll pay. Actually, not I guess. This is what I'll pay. Some builders don't cap some items. So imagine development charges are not capped, and we think it's $5,000, but it's $7,000. Oh, it's $8,000. Oh, it's $9,000. Oh, it's $10,000.
Because the builder doesn't know until
they don't know,
closing, right?
And they don't know. They have an estimate just like everyone else. So now they charge $10,000 to the client, and the client's like, "That was I don't have the extra $5,000. Like, I'm on a tight budget." It helps you budget if everything is capped. So at least you could say to yourself, "I believe I'll be able to close in 3 years, 4 years at this number." So one reason people walk away is uncapped charges.
Because they don't know how much the closing costs are.
They don't know what they really will be.
Which is fair, right? To an extent.
To some degree. To another degree, you can always say it'll be 1 or 2% more. Can I handle a 2%, paying 2% more?
Yeah.
If the answer is yes, then still go ahead with it if it's an investment or something like that. But nowadays, 1 or 2% means a lot compared to what it meant a year or two ago, because every penny counts right now for people.
Yeah.
Everything counts.
True.
As interest rates go up and down, every penny counts.
True.
So some of the biggest fears that people have is like a project canceling for whatever reason, the builder goes bankrupt. Like, what actually happens in a standard case of condos? What happens to their deposit from the trust account? Like,
Yeah.
Is there a certain time period that it has to get returned to the buyer?
It's a very good question. So until like 2 years ago, I never saw anything ever go belly up. Every project finished. Everybody closed. There were delays. Sometimes things happened, ups and downs, but everything closed. Then I started seeing 1, 2. Now I see a few a year. Now I'm going to see more every year because builders can't finish the project. So there's something in every agreement called the economic viability date. I don't know if you've heard of that. And there's a date by which they have to have economic viability, like the health, the ability to close, to do the thing. If they can't, let's say they couldn't get the loans from the bank, or they haven't sold enough, pre-sold enough units, then they can't build. And in those cases, they will announce to everybody, hey, in a letter, sorry, due to this, this, and this, we are unable to close. We could not meet our economic viability date. As such, we're returning all your money. Please sign here for a mutual release. Some people sign, some people don't. But they say, once you sign, we'll release the money. So then most people sign at that point. A mutual release, meaning I release you, I will never sue you. You release me, you'll never sue me. They give it back, and then they get their money back, their deposits back, because the monies were held in the lawyer's trust account safely. So they couldn't finish, or they went bankrupt. In that example as well, same thing. They go bankrupt. Let's say they've gone past the economic viability. They start building, but they go bankrupt. Same thing. The money's still in the trust account, so still they write the letter. It's now not them who writes the letter; it's the trustee in bankruptcy, maybe. But they get their money back with interest sometimes, without interest some other times.
Okay, and that's pretty much an instantaneous process mostly.
I want to say it's instantaneous, but it does take time, and they're not rushing. No one's rushing to return money. And I find in general, no one rushes to return money to anyone.
Yes.
People rush to give money, and people rush to get your money. Sorry, people always rush to get your money. People never rush to return your money. They go nice and slow and make sure everything's perfect. Yeah, even lawyers.
So is there like a minimum amount of days that usually they return it, and then like a maximum?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know how long it is before they would have to release it, because I think if there's complexities, it could take up to 2 years to return it.
Yeah.
Let's say there's some major complexities of where that money goes, but in general, what I've seen is the money does come back pretty quick in those cases, and without too much issue, unless the client has an issue signing a mutual release.
Another big thing with pre-construction, obviously, there's unavoidable delays sometimes. I know you spoke about it before. Can you dive a little deeper into
Sure.
delayed occupancy?
Not a lot of people know this.
Okay,
Delayed
I'll start off by saying this. There's lots of delays. So when I talk to a client about new construction, I say delays go with new construction. They're hand in hand, they're cousins.
Yeah.
Okay? And wherever they go, the cousin goes to. So you're going to have delays. Okay, that's normal. And you're going to have notices about delays. That's normal. At one point, there's going to be a firm occupancy date. It'll say the word firm. That's like the key. Now, if that date gets delayed, which it does sometimes, then you start to be allowed carry-on compensation. Okay, and we'll talk to the client about that at that point. We can go right to the builder and ask for the compensation before we go to carry-on, or if the builder's not cooperating, which they usually do cooperate, then you go to carry-on and you can get money per day for compensation if they go beyond the firm occupancy date. But until the firm occupancy date, there can be delays. Okay, that's one thing. So we talked about delays. What about unavoidable delays? From time to time, especially during COVID-19, you see something that says unavoidable delay notice. And you're like, oh, here we go. Because the minute you see an unavoidable delay notice, due to what? COVID-19, due to war,
Pandemic, yeah.
pandemic, due to, not in a good mood. No, not that one. But due to like lots of stuff, right? As long as that's a legit reason, which there are many these days, unfortunately, then right away the clock stops and they can go and go and go and go and go and go. And there's a delay for a long time until it's over, and then right away the timelines start again. That's what happened during the pandemic. And so all these people who were waiting to close, it got delayed. Now this is something that I want you to know. Investors love delays.
Yeah.
End users don't love delays. So when you deliver news to someone, I teach all lawyers this, and this is just in general knowledge. Look at who you're delivering the news to before you deliver. You don't say, oh my God, there's a delay, it's so terrible. Because maybe it's amazing. So you say, there's a delay.
Especially
And then the
now.
client might say, great, I don't want to close for an extra 2 years.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, that's great. And you hang up the phone. That's how you delivered that news. It was great news. Or if you say it to an end user who gave notice to their landlord that they're moving in 2 months and now there's a delay, that's like a disaster. So always know your audience, know your client before you deliver any news. Because the same news to one, like one man's gold is another, one man's trash is another man's gold. I don't know if you know that saying, but I'm saying it wrong. But one man's trash is another man's gold. And what I'm trying to say is the news to one person may be poor, whereas it may be great to someone else. So be careful about that. That's all.
So no, I think the delays, they say, it's a construction strike. Do you know if that considered that?
That's for sure considered an unavoidable delay. Yeah.
Yeah, and in that case, there's no compensation.
No compensation. Yes,
So
and that's how it goes.
they can get away with it,
Yes.
right? From experience, have you helped a lot of buyers get that compensation? Is it common?
When it's past the firm occupancy date, yes.
Which is a lot of projects, they go
Not a
past.
lot. Some.
Okay.
Yeah. most delay, but then finally there's a firm and then they really close. It's rare. Like builders should not delay firm occupancy dates when possible. It costs them real money per day, per user, per user.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's say a builder, if they go bankrupt, for example, like this builder, then obviously with the trust, there is a collection process.
Correct, yeah. And you want to get on it right away, or you want to tell the client to get on it right away. I like when you have to collect money, you do it right away. You don't leave that for a week.
Yeah.
You just start the process because money's dwindling. Although in the trust, there should be enough for everyone.
Do they need a lawyer, the buyers?
See, I wish they had a lawyer already because they would have had a lawyer during the 10-day cooling off. But yeah, they don't need a lawyer. They don't need a lawyer. They could just write to the things to the builder, I want my money back. But if they're not being taken seriously right away, then they should get a lawyer right away.
Yeah.
And I've also heard that this builder had gotten more loan against the deposits, so there might not be enough in the trust deal.
They would have gotten an insurance. Okay, so some builders can get an insurance policy on the deposit money and take the money out. I didn't want to get too detailed, but that can be done. But then it should be insured.
Okay,
So there should not be a problem.
Yeah.
And if there is, you let me know. I want to deal with it.
That's why it's important to get a good lawyer.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't stress that enough. Like a lawyer is one thing, but you don't want to get a family lawyer to do your real estate transaction.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't want to get a real estate lawyer to do your pre-con. I'm sorry to say, it's a different animal. It's a different kind of transaction.
Can you tell the people like what's the difference? Because I know a lot of people think that it's okay to go to their cousin lawyer. Or
Yeah, don't go to your cousin because let's be honest. There's a difference between an agreement of purchase and sale, resale one, and an agreement of purchase and sale for new construction. I'll give you some examples. Resale is like what, 8, 9, 10 pages, and it's drafted by you, the realtor, for your client in their interest, in their best interest, and it's handed over to the seller. So that's a good place to start. The seller, when it comes to new construction, the agreement's about 50 pages long, and it's written by the seller, and it's in their favor, admittedly. It is 100% in their favor, and it's not in your favor in any way. So that's like not balanced. And now they're a big company with millions, and hopefully you got millions, but you're like a little person, and it's not, the balance is unfair. So you really want a good lawyer who's reviewed those and can pick out the nuances in this 50-page agreement that change the whole agreement, that add 1 or 3% to the purchase price with no one looking in one tiny paragraph. That's what we're seeing. So someone who can pick through it and prepare, this is the key, is to prepare the client for what's to come on closing, which is 3 to 4 years from now.
Yeah.
Prepare them so that there's no surprises and no shocks. We've seen it. I've seen so many people come from cousin Larry, cousin Larry, and they're like, yeah, I'm with him, but I gotta get away from him. Like, come to the light, I'll help you, and we bring them into our wings and we help them out.
Yeah. And also it's important because you can ask to cap some of the charges or some of the charges.
During the 10-day cooling off period, so many people who went to a lawyer, they didn't even ask. So nothing's capped. So what did you do? Like, you didn't do what you're supposed to because you didn't know. Because you didn't know what the job is of a real estate lawyer when it comes to pre-con. It's not the same. When it's in resale, we just receive the agreement. We don't even question the agreement, ever.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It's signed. It's firm. You guys give us a firm agreement, we just execute it. That's our job. Execute the agreement as per the agreement. That's it. New construction, we can manipulate and change the agreement and fight for the client and fight for their rights. And so there's a big difference.
Yeah.
And generally this has to be done in the 10-day cooling period.
Has to be.
In the future, they're not going to touch it.
You got it. So, okay, the cooling off period starts the day you sign the agreement and receive the disclosure. Once both of those things happen, like if you get the disclosure the next day, that's the day it starts. That's day 1. Day 1 is that day, no matter what time it is. Then day 2, 3, 4, 5, up to day 10, weekends count. So day 10 at midnight, it's over. Like, you can't make any more changes to the agreement. If you ask the next day, they won't say yes. They'll say no. It's past the cooling off period. So you have to ask before.
Which 10 days is more than enough.
Well, you'd be surprised. So you'd think it's enough, but often the agreement gets signed, then it gets returned to the client. Then the agent says, do you have a lawyer? Then the next day they say, no, maybe, I don't know. Then the agent's like, do you have a lawyer? Like, let's do this. Yes, okay. Introduced to lawyer. Lawyer sends quote. Then the agreement comes. Then there's a review. Then there's a review with the client, in our case, a video review. And then you start asking for caps and deletions. So that's sounds like 6-7 days right there already. So it's urgent. We say, urgently get to a lawyer right away. Hey, I signed this agreement. It's hot. hand it to the lawyer. Let's review it while it's hot. Let's get stuff going while it's hot.
Is it true that once the lawyer sends like a notice for amendments to the builder's lawyer, like does the 10-day cooling period get extended?
Very smart question, and the answer is no, it doesn't. And some lawyers think that. So that's wrong, because of course it's wrong. Imagine, so if I was that lawyer, I'd wait till the 10th day, and at 9 a.m. I'd submit my request and buy myself more time.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. So what we do is we always ask for a further extension in our request. So we make a request within the 10 days and say, hey, we are within our 10 days. We're making this request. Can you please extend until you answer us? And they usually then, that forces them to either answer quicker or give us that extension, and we get both. If they say no to the extension, that's great, because that means they answer. Still they answer, so we create that urgency in the builder. But the answer is no. So if you ask for caps and they don't answer, and now the 10-day cooling off period ends, they're out of luck. They're shit out of luck.
It's from without the cap.
But we at 5 p.m. on that day, we say, hey, we still haven't heard from you. Our client is interested in pursuing this. However, we haven't heard from you. It's very important to our client. Please extend until you write back. And then that would show the court later on how hard we pushed. And so in those cases, the builder either extends or answers again. So we have these we have push points that we call them.
Or is there, from the buyer's representation side, like, can you put in like a condition where it's like the 10-day period is?
You can put whatever you want, but it's not binding. Because that's the whole point. The Condominium Act says 10 days from the date of signing. It's 10 days from the date of signing. No way out of it unless someone agrees with you. Very good question. And then you see some lawyers think that.
Yeah,
that's wrong.
It's actually true. Like, some lawyers have advised me that. So when they send the letter to the other lawyer, they said, oh, it's going to get extended. Like, the firming date gets extended.
That is 100% incorrect.
I had so many.
And it makes sense why it's incorrect if you think about it. I just speak from logic, right?
Yeah.
There's no way that could extend it, right? Otherwise, we would use it as a tactic,
right?
And one thing about real estate law, in real estate law, as in all law, time is of the essence. Time is of the essence. And similarly, time is of the essence. So you can't contract out of the time.
I had so many lawyers kill my deal, so I can't stress this enough to get a good lawyer. And you only pay a couple of hundred, and you're going to save a couple of thousand.
Listen, you're either a deal maker or a deal breaker in law, and I'm objective. I want people to have the right information and make the right decision for them. So sometimes the answer is no, that's fine, but we don't break deals. We just explain the deal. And then it's all, to me, as I've learned, and I told you this earlier, but it's a numbers game in life. You put numbers on a spreadsheet, and you ask yourself, is this a good thing to do or not? Based on the facts I've been given. You just want to be given the best explanation of the facts that you can be given.
That's one of the things that I love you guys do is the Excel sheet. You and your team, it's very detailed Excel sheet of the estimated closing cost. Not a lot of lawyers do that.
I've never seen a lawyer do it, but what we do is, because again, I grew up I'm a numbers guy, so I like to give every client numbers, and then we do a video call with them, and they see the numbers. We take them through the numbers line by line. By the end of the call, they understand all the numbers. They understand how the HST rebate works. They understand about assignments. They understand that when you buy new construction, there's only 3 things you can do. You can either live there, rent it out, or assign it. So they understand all 3 of those.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about everyone's favorite topic. You just mentioned it, HST.
Yeah.
So there's a rebatable portion and a non-rebatable portion.
HST, first of all, I just want to explain, there's a difference between HST and the HST rebate, okay? And every realtor I know confuses it and talks about it incorrectly in their emails, and it just shows such a lack of understanding, okay? And so that's why I go around, when I just talk to realtors about this stuff because I want everyone to understand the difference. So it's real simple though. HST is what we pay on stuff, 13%, that's what we pay on stuff. So when you buy a property of $500,000, HST is included. The 13% is included. So HST is included. So when you go around walking around town as a realtor, you can say proudly, HST is included in the purchase price. It's real simple. Okay? HST rebate is another thing. Now, the HST rebate is also included in the purchase price of, let's say, $500,000. If, this is the if, you will live there as your primary place of residence. So I'll just repeat that. The HST rebate of $24,000 is also included in the purchase price if you'll live there as your primary place of residence. So you don't pay any HST rebate, it's included, you just pay your $500,000. You don't pay HST, you don't pay the HST rebate because they're included because you're going to live there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then, if you're not going to live there, that means it's an investment, immediately. So then you have to pay the HST rebate. You have to pay the $24,000 on top of the purchase price, always, if you won't live there. So now you're paying $524,000 for the price. But, and this is the great news, no matter what, you can get that money back so long as you put a tenant in there with a 1-year lease. The tenant has to have, it's a 1-year lease, so they live there for a year as their primary place of residence. And it has to be a person and not a corporation.
Okay.
So it can't be ABC Corporation. It can be John Smith. So John Smith is living there for a year. You submit, we do it for their clients, submit that application to the government, and we get them a rental housing rebate of $24,000 plus interest. They get like another $200 or so.
Nice.
Yeah, and then that takes 3 to 4 months from the date of the final closing.
Okay, 3 to 4 months.
Circling back, there's HST and there's the HST rebate. HST is included in the price. The HST rebate is on top if you won't live there, but you can get it back with the rental housing rebate. Now let's take it one step more complex. If there's an assignment, which is when you sell the property from one person to another. So an assignment, just so people know, is when you buy a property from a builder, you're A. A buys a property from the builder, and before closing, A sells the contract to B. That's an assignment. Now B is closing, okay?
Yeah.
B has to pay the HST rebate of $24,000, whether they're living there or not. If it's an assignment, you have to pay the rebate. If it's an assignment, yes. If it's an assignment, you have to pay the $24,000 rebate for sure, no questions asked. Okay? But the great news is you can get the full $24,000 back whether you're living there or not, because there's an application for people living there as well, and we do all that. So they get it back. So realtors need to know that when you're doing an assignment, the ultimate end user will pay the $24,000, but they for sure can get it back so long as they rent it out for a year to somebody who's a person, not a corporation, or they live there as their primary place of residence. They can get it back. One thing I learned over the years about lawyers is they think they're really smart. They think they're the smartest person in the room everywhere they go, right? And it's kind of like your job. Like you stand up for your client. So you walk into rooms thinking you're so smart. But what I've learned, and I'm sorry to say this to most lawyers, are idiots. They might be good at one thing, which is great, and maybe it's good in the courtroom or good at this, but they're kind of like idiots. And I've been speaking to a lot of my lawyer friends, and I said, "Hey, you're all idiots." And I proved it to them. They're like, "Holy shit!" So like, be careful who you are. Okay,
Yeah.
A lawyer thinks they're smart and can convey themselves to be very smart, but the truth is, most of us are idiots. But someone who works hard, and I did a video on this today, but you got to work hard in life. You got to read and better yourself and like have passion for what you do, which is totally gone in our society these days. So I meet a lot of lawyers who have no clue what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's sad. The smart ones at least approach me and say, "How do I do this?" And I do that too, by the way. I don't know everything. I don't profess to know everything. So I call other lawyers and I say, "How do you do this? What would you do here? This is what I would do." I always come up with my solution first, and I tell this to my team as well. Have your solution ready when you ask a question to someone. Say, "Here's my question. Here's how I think I would deal with it," because that means you actually did some work and researched it. What do you think? And then they'll either say, "Great idea, that's the right way to go ahead with it," or they would say, "Yeah, that's not exactly how I would do it," and then you make a decision about what you want to do. But ask for help and realize that you don't know everything. So a lot of lawyers work in a vacuum. They work in their office every day, they drive to their office every day, and they think they know what's going on. And when I talk to them, I realize not even close.
Yeah.
It's not even close with the
Crazy.
confidence too. So I do put lawyers in their place every day, and I win because I know what I'm talking about, and they hear it in my voice, they see it in my letters, they see it in the case law we use when we make arguments for our clients. We actually use case law like to say like the law says you can't say that, you can't do that, and so we win.
Feels good.
It feels good to win.
Wow, I feel like you just dropped like the secret to success. It's like, don't think you know everything, just keep learning.
Yeah,
keep
applies to
going.
everything.
I think, like, not that I love Mark Zuckerberg, but he had a sign on his door that always said, "We are 1% done." And I love that. And that's how I feel every day. I'm 1% done. I'm not anywhere close to done. I gotta have so much more to do every day, every minute, every second.
No, that's inspiring.
Growth mindset.
Yeah. And even I was telling my Andrew, like, you're the cool lawyer. You don't see lawyers on
It's been fun. It's been a fun run.
TikTok.
Yeah, it's a fun run. It's fun. I'm enjoying being a lawyer in Toronto. Last few years has been super exciting.
Yeah.
And people know me everywhere I go from this TikTok stuff, and
Yeah.
it's kind of fun. I feel young again.
You have about 80,000 followers?
Yeah, like 85,000 or so.
Let's get you to 150.
Let's get it. Yeah.
How long did it take you to get
You know what? It happened really fast because luckily for me, some dude who's a big famous TikToker knocked on my door and said, "I love your house. What do you do for a living?"
Oh, one of those.
And I said, "I'm a lawyer." And it went mega viral with 100 million views over a year. And everyone got to know me. And then he became friends with me. And now he goes all around the world, but he showed me how to film videos. He filmed a bunch with me, and slowly, in like a very short period of time, I got 85,000 followers. And now I have to work. Now I'm trying to work on building that. Like it's like he's gone now, right? So I need help. Yeah.
You need him again.
I need him again.
So that's the thing with TikTok. It's fast, like you get that followers, but then
the thing with TikTok is it's very hard to gain a followership, but once you do, you can't fall off. You got to keep it going. Like people want you. And like you have to accept that. Like people in real, this is funny stuff. I'm glad I didn't know we'd ever talk about this, but once you go into the TikTok world and you have fans, you kind of like love your fans and they love you, and then your family starts hating you. And for every love you get from the fans, your family hates you more because now you're like spending more time with your fans, and like you come home, you're like, yeah, like I'm famous. They're like, no, you're like clean the dishwasher. It's like I don't clean the dishwasher. I'm famous. It's like no, clean the dishwasher and fold the laundry. So I'm like, I'm fully like, I'm famous. I don't know how to fold this, but I'm famous. That's what I know. So anyway, point is, don't get caught up in your famousness, but you have to work. Even at that, you have to work, do 1, 2, 3 videos a day if you really want to get a good following on TikTok or Instagram. And then does that convert to money? It does for me, but not like TikTok gives me money from the views. No, just that people like you, I'm here. And then you're going to show this to people, and so on, and more realtors will see it. And slowly, realtors in Toronto, the right people, are seeing my videos and sending me actual work.
Well, just the fact that you have this specialized knowledge and you're able to actually help clients, get further in terms of like the agreements and, if we have to chase down collections.
Exactly, no, for sure. And it's like I've always learned that people line up for the thought leaders. People line up, as a young age, I was told, people line up for the thought leaders. And I used to line up to meet this guy and that guy. So become a thought leader at something. Become a leader in thought at something, so that people line up. So we do, so now there's lineups. That's just how it works.
I love it. Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you is you mentioned the closing costs, and that's why a lot of people, one of the reasons they cancel is because of the uncertainty. So what are the closing costs that must be capped?
It's really good to cap the development charges. That's like a no-brainer. It's really important to cap the Section 37 charges if you can. And in a nutshell, when a building is, let's say, 50 stories, and they want to do another 5 stories, they have to pay the government for that, and they pass that payment on to the users. So you don't know at the beginning how much the Section 37 charges could be, and many builders don't cap that, and that does scare away some clients because that could be a big number. So that's one that you want to try to get capped. There's no guarantee they will. Some builders will, some builders won't. And then there's other things like there's education levies, development charges, park levies. All those you want capped, because sometimes there's even art charges, and maybe the art charge could be $20,000. Like it could be an ugly number. So the truth is, all the big numbers you want capped. Anything over $5,000, you want capped. And if you don't, so here's the thing: if they don't cap it, you want to warn the client, and we use orange. So that's the color we use. Everything's color coded with us to say to the client, "Hey, this is orange, and what that means to us is, I don't know what this number is. I'm giving you a rough estimate. Could be more, could be less. Are you willing to take the risk?" And most people are willing to. Some people are like, I like certainty and I won't accept it, and that's okay. So then don't go ahead.
Yeah.
Because I'd rather you know what you're getting yourself into and happy today versus unhappy 3 years from now.
Exactly. No, I love you said that, because I know now some people are calling me and they told me, I had closing, or I have a closing coming soon, and the lawyer told me I have to pay $50,000 closing costs, and the purchase price is $600,000. So that's almost 10%, and they didn't know that because they went directly to the builder, or the realtor didn't tell them.
Yeah, I hate that. For us, our clients know what they're going to pay. They can have that heart attack in the first 10 days and be okay with it, and be like, decide yes. And then later on, when they see those big numbers, they're like, yeah, I expected that. Yeah. Manage your client's expectations. Manage your client's expectations.
It's a big thing we're playing with, like real estate. It's not cheap.
Yeah, this isn't a chocolate bar. This isn't my new Oculus 3, which just came today, which I'm going to try when I get home. This is a large property. This is all of their hard-earned money. In many cases, it's every penny of their hard-earned money. And you have to respect that. That's the thing also, is like, it's not a number, even though it's a client. Like, this person worked their whole life to save this much money.
Yeah.
and now it's like going over to the builder, that money, like to the builder's lawyer in trust. Like, what does that mean? You have to really have respect for that money and how hard the person worked for it, and when you're explaining things to a client.
Yeah. I want to say one thing that might hurt some feelings, but I got a call about 2 weeks ago from a client, and he told me that he has this big closing cost, 50,000, 60,000. He didn't know. And then I asked many questions, like who was the realtor you worked with? And then I found out that he got cashback from the realtor. And the realtor didn't tell him to review the agreement to the lawyer. So kind of some clients, they deserve that because they're cheaping out. They wanted the cashback. So obviously the agent didn't tell them you have to review the agreement to the lawyer. And now they have to pay extra 20,000, 30,000, right?
Honestly, like, it kills me to hear that there are realtors who do that.
Oh.
That is sad.
Wow.
And they won't always be able to give cash back because they may not make that money because the builder doesn't even always pay them on time. So they might be chasing them, and then they will report that. Any realtor that's doing that, they're on the path to destruction.
That's the thing, you know?
Any lawyer who does something like that, they're on their path to destruction. Even worse, a lawyer has a higher duty than a realtor, to be honest, to not do that kind of stuff.
People try to save $5,000 and then end up losing 30,000.
Yeah, so
good
point on that. So
small thinking.
yeah, like small thinking is where you give up something, you give up a big thing for something small because today something shiny is being shown to you. A lot of people will always go for the shiny object, right?
Yeah.
You have to learn self-control. Like there's a shiny object right in front of me. I want to grab it so bad. I want it so bad. But what's behind it? It's like a rabid animal. Like you gotta be careful. So long story short is when something shiny is offered to you, try to understand why, right? Because these days there's not that much free stuff out there.
Yeah.
So why would someone do that? And I always learn this again, just knowledge, dropping knowledge bombs, but consider the source. Always look at the source of why something's happening and what would be the benefit to that person or that thing, and then say to yourself, okay, that makes sense. You can still do it, but as long as it makes sense. Everything has to make sense to us. Lately, people just do what they're told. We're bombarded with everything on social media, and basically we don't even know what's true anymore, so we don't even trust ourselves. But we have to come back to trusting our gut, and if something seems wrong, it's wrong. Why? Question it. Question people. Don't say, okay, question it. Question everyone. Question your realtor, question your lawyer until you understand things. And then when you understand things, proceed.
Speaking of that, how can the buyer know what lawyer to work with? Like what questions should they ask?
They should ask how many deals a month, how many new construction deals do you do a month?
Okay.
There should be an answer there that's not zero, not one.
Because if they just ask, oh, are you familiar with pre-construction? They'll already say yes.
Yeah. So and what do you do for me? Like what, as my lawyer for this new construction project, what will you do for me?
Yeah.
And the lawyer should say, I'll review the agreement, I'll request caps for you, and I'll do the interim occupancy for you, I'll do the final closing for you, that includes title insurance, and I'll help you along the way. Like that's the kind of thing you want to hear, right? And many will say, we do a cursory review of the agreement, that's it, right? And most do, like, because we've seen the reviews. I am in the lucky position, I see all the reviews, and they're all the same. They're just the same regurgitated review, so,
Yeah. One question I want to ask, what if someone lists their assignment on the MLS?
Ooh, that's a doozy. So almost every single agreement of purchase and sale with a builder says you cannot list it on MLS. So that's number one. So if you're thinking as a realtor to list it, first check that because there's a 99% chance you cannot. Secondly, ones who've done it, right away within 24 hours, the builder's lawyer writes a letter that's very nasty and it says, this has been listed on MLS, remove it within 24 hours. You are now in default of the agreement. We will consider reinstating you once you confirm it's off. And then here's where they might say nothing, or they might say, you've lost all your caps.
Wow.
And have a great day. So then you immediately tell the agent, hey, you did that? They're like, oh, and then they remove it right away. Sometimes they sell in that time, so there's that risk. So in the olden days, people would take that risk because back then they didn't remove the amendments and the caps, and they took the risk, and maybe it would cost $5,000 reinstatement fee or something like that would be worth it to find a buyer within 24 hours.
Yeah.
Now that's like not happening. People point fingers now. So a client could point their finger and say, why didn't you tell me? Like, you're my agent. You list properties on MLS, right? Not me. You're like, yeah. So that's your job, to list properties on MLS, right? Yeah. So you listed this property on MLS, and now I've lost $20,000 because of your action. I blame you. Why didn't you tell me, amazing realtor, about this? So involve the lawyer in those cases. Check the agreement. It says you cannot list it. Okay, so you cannot. So to take a step, so then once they've done that, they're in default, and the builder takes control, and they can do whatever they want. Many times they'll reinstate it the next day once you say sorry. I'm so sorry, I didn't know. It's removed. Here's proof it's removed. Please, 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 please. Sometimes they'll say okay, and they move forward, or pay this much, or we're those kind of. Or it can create more problems. Like now we're not going to allow an assignment.
Oh.
How about that one?
Yeah.
You just listed it for an assignment, so we're not going to allow an assignment. Have a great day. Now they can't list. Then they have to beg, hey, everyone else is assigning, now you're not letting us. That's so outrageous. Oh, well, I don't know what to tell you. You listed it on MLS. So you lost your rights, not us. That's how they can talk. Again, what's the environment now? It's more like that. A year or two ago, no, they would allow a lot more. Builders are not too allowy now, for lack of a better term.
If the purchaser's in default of the agreement, then is it also possible that the builder can just take away all the deposits and cancel it?
Yes, so two things. When someone's in default, they're in default, and the builder can say that, and they can keep all the deposits, and then they have a duty to mitigate their damages by relisting the property and selling it. Then if they sell it for less, they can sue for the difference. If they sell it for more, there's no damages, so they can't sue for the differences, but they get to keep the deposits. And I want to tell you, those deposits are separate from the damages. So imagine they sold it to you for $500, you default, now they sell it for $400. So that's $100,000 they can sue you for. But they already have $100,000 from your deposit. They keep that $100 and they can still sue you for $100.
Oh wow.
Okay, that's something people don't know. Okay, because that $100 is separate. That's the deposit which they get to keep as per the agreement, but there's damages and they can sue for $100,000 there too.
Right. So that's like the worst case scenario.
Yes. Now, builders in the past did not sue because they always had no trouble selling the property for much more. In fact, they got to keep your 100 and sell it, and a win-win for them when you default back in the day. And people who default, the builder tries to sell, they might sell for less than it was signed for 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And therefore they'll sue for the difference. So we've never seen that happen before, and we're starting to. I haven't seen a lawsuit yet, but we're starting to see we're starting to see that builders will likely be selling units for less than it was signed up for.
Yeah. I think the stats was like if anybody bought 2019 and afterwards,
There you go.
pre-construction, like you would not be profiting today.
Correct.
Most projects.
Most
No.
projects. If
Most
you close
projects.
today.
Yes.
That's good. But the thing is, if the buyer defaults on the payment, I think the builder will give them a warning before.
Yes, they give you warnings, and they want to work with you. They want you to close. They don't want you to default, especially now because they can't even close it for as much. So they want you to proceed. So they're pro. They give extensions for that kind of thing.
It happened to one of my clients recently. He defaulted, and then they give him 2 months. You know?
Yeah, they're a little bit more lenient now.
Yeah.
Because they need that money.
Yeah.
Of course. How did you get into like being a lawyer? Was that your childhood dream?
Absolutely not. I started in neuroscience. I wanted to be a brain surgeon. It was my dream. Then for one reason or another, I started studying for the LSAT. And I did really well. So I'm like, oh, that's good. So I went to law school. Literally, that's the only reason. Because I did well in the LSAT. Like exceptionally well. I think I got like one of the highest marks. 96 percentile or some crazy mark. So I became a lawyer. And then I started on Bay Street. And I was acting for a big firm. And I hated law so much. And I was like, I think I made a big mistake. I should have been a doctor.
Neurosurgeon.
I should have been a neurosurgeon, man. But I was disillusioned on Bay Street, meaning I just could not handle the way people were. I hated it, which was a great thing. So I left. I started a real estate law firm. Had no idea what I was doing, and I learned everything from a small blue book, and I learned quickly. And then I hired. Now I have 25 people, and it's a big deal. And like looking back 20 years ago, that's the best thing I ever did was take that risk, leave Bay Street, take a risk with no money for a year, absolutely nothing. But push with my passion. I knew I had a passion. I didn't have passion on Bay Street. I had a passion to leave. I did.
Yeah.
And then I had a passion to work hard at my own thing, and that's what I did, and that's how I got here. And that's like that passion. The way I talk, all that came in one day. Like I didn't talk like that before. Now I always talk like this. I can't stop. I have this crazy energy, so I know I'm doing the right thing. I know I'm on the right path.
Exactly.
Because I can't stop talking.
Love it. When did you get into pre-con?
And then pre-con pretty early because no one was doing it, and definitely no one was doing assignments. So I started doing the first assignments. I remember like it was way back in the day, and they were coming to us because no one else was doing them. And then all the lawyers were asking us, how do you do this? What clauses should we add? So we realized we had something. So I started talking about pre-con, and then we're the pre-con guys. But we do resale too, a lot.
Yeah.
I don't want to be typecast that I only
Of
do
course.
pre-con. We do tons of resale. We love resale.
Yeah.
Condos, houses, everything.
The thing is, you're also passionate about learning. You keep going. I think that's pretty much like all our guests who have been very successful in their field. It's just that they never stop learning. They want to keep going.
You should realize what an idiot you are. That's one thing I really have to say. Like, I wake up every morning and I realize there's so much more to learn, and I don't know anything. And that's how I feel, and I'm grateful for that. I'm not upset about it. I'm very grateful that I'm allowed, because right now in some countries all across the world, you get up, you're not even sure you're going to live.
Yeah.
You get up, you have no freedoms. You definitely don't have a freedom to do anything you want and like learn anything you want. So take advantage. Everyone who's listening to this, take advantage of the freedom you have by getting up every day and give every minute you have to learning and becoming better. You're lucky that you're allowed to do that. Where most people are not allowed even to do that.
We take it for granted.
We take everything for granted. We complain about the coffee's too cold, or the lineup's too long, or this guy's in a bad mood and screwed up my order, or yes, all that's happening. But those, unfortunately, everyone's suffering right now a lot in due to financial hardship and due to a lot of different things going on in the whole world. So if you have that freedom and that ability to go ahead and make yourself better every day in every way you can, you should, like, I consider that a duty. You have a duty to do that. And I when I wake up, I have a duty to take care of myself physically and mentally and my family. I have a duty. I can't ever stop.
Yeah, that's a great mindset to have. That's a great mindset.
One of the greatest cities, great opportunities. We're
Yeah.
blessed.
Yeah,
to be
we
here.
are
100%.
blessed. We're literally blessed. So all the small things, just let them go. It's okay. Life's not perfect. If it was, it would be boring. Very, very boring.
Let's wrap it. That was a great episode.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
David.
I'm
Thank
not
you so
singing
much
too
for
low
coming.
here.
Where can we find you on like social?
Yeah, for sure. So
Instagram is.
at David Feld,
You also have TikTok.
at David Feld,
Everything's at David.
at David Feld, yeah, and then the website is wearelaw.ca.
Awesome. Well, go check him out. Use him for all your pre-construction law and real estate.
Yeah, awesome. See you guys in the next one.
See you later. Thank you so much.